Hello, this is Archie Dunlop with Talking Astrology with Archie, and I want to talk about Jupiter's movement into Taurus, which happens on May the 16th, 2023, and it stays in Taurus until May the 25th, 2024. So it's going to be in this sign for over a year. So, what does it mean? Well, there are two approaches. We can take an empirical approach, or we can take a rational approach. So if we take an empirical approach to what it means for Jupiter in Taurus, we could look at previous times when Jupiter was in this sign. For example, Jupiter was in Taurus from June the 28th, 1999 through to June the 30th, 2000, on and off. I mean, it moved back and forth between Aries and Taurus, but its first entry into that sign during that cycle was June the 28th, 1999, and it was there until June the 30th, 2000. Or we could look at 1976, where Jupiter entered Taurus on March 26, 1976, and left on April the 3rd, 1977. And in fact, I'm going to be focusing quite a bit on Jupiter's movement through Taurus in the mid to late 1970s. Then there's a rational approach. The rational approach focuses on the symbolism of Jupiter and the symbolism of Taurus, and our knowledge of astrology to make sense of this symbolism and to use this symbolism to make suggestions about what it might mean for Jupiter to be in Taurus. I think that the rational approach is what most astrologers use. So when you look at other videos on Jupiter moving into Taurus, people might talk about the sensuality of it. They might talk about money. They might talk perhaps about nature, that kind of stuff. It's all quite valid, but one wonders whether it actually has any empirical foundation. Now, we should consider the possibility that Jupiter moving into Taurus means absolutely nothing. I mean, there's stuff going on astrologically, many different cycles and so on. Just to focus on Jupiter in Taurus is a tiny part of the picture, and one might argue that really it's all completely meaningless. It might make us feel good, feel meaningful to look at what happens when Jupiter enters a sign, but yeah, maybe it means absolutely nothing. But I'm going to start off by focusing on you, the individual. What might it mean for you individually for Jupiter to move into Taurus? Now, I don't know your exact birth chart. Even if I did, it wouldn't be very helpful because, I don't know, let's say even if just 10 people listen to me, I've still got to look at 10 horoscopes. I can't do that. So what I have to do is I have to use star sign generalizations. So I will look at your star sign and I will say, all things being equal, what you might expect. So here we go. I'm going to start off by going through the 12 signs. Then I will look at Jupiter in a broader sense, look at it empirically, look at it rationally. So here we go. Aries. With Jupiter moving into Taurus, there's going to be a focus on money. Now, this might mean that you have an opportunity to make more money. And if you take advantage of all the opportunities that come your way, I'm confident that in a year's time, you can be better off than you are now. On the other hand, Jupiter may encourage you to spend too much money, so you do need to be careful. Taurus, Jupiter is moving through your star sign. The next year is going to be great. You're going to be lucky, and if you put your mind to something, there's no reason why you can't be very successful. However, you mustn't take the view that fate is going to hand you everything on a silver plate. Because if you take that view, you'll be attracting a whole load of negativity and you may not achieve anything. So you've got to be proactive. Gemini, it's a time when you need to step back. You don't need to be an active player all the time. Just watch what's going on, observe, and perhaps just enjoy a little bit of solitude. Cancer, focus on your friends. Make some new friends. Break out of your clan. You remember, Cancer can be a very clannish sign. Expand your social horizons, because new friends can bring you new luck. Leo, your career is going to be very important. So whether you're self-employed or working for someone, it can be a great year. And I know we're likely to move into a recession this year, but even so, Jupiter moving into, in the jargon, moving into the career sector of your solar chart, the solar 10th house, could be very good news for you. But if you feel that your job is not giving you what you want, don't be afraid of looking for a new job. It's a great time for making a career switch. Virgo. You know, Virgos can be a little too focused on the details, particularly the material details. And so with Jupiter moving through Taurus, you have a chance to expand your horizons. Perhaps that means being more spiritual, or maybe you can do some traveling. But I'm not inviting you to go zooming around the world in aeroplanes. You know, you've got to look after your carbon footprint. So, you know, you don't have to fly to travel. You know, you can get a new experience just by going to the other side of town. Or maybe you can take the bus. Maybe a very long bus trip. But yeah, look after the environment. I mean, you're a Virgo. You understand that, don't you? Libra. It's a time where you have to deal with complicated issues, perhaps of a financial nature, or contracts, wills, that kind of thing. Being prepared to look under the surface. And that's something that Librans hate to do in many cases. You know, Librans, they want a happy life. They don't want to have complications. But with Jupiter going into Libra, you need to deal with those complications. Because if you can deal with those complications, in the end, you can really enrich yourself and put yourself in control of your environment. Scorpio. With Jupiter moving through Taurus, Taurus is your opposite sign. And in the Scorpio solar chart, that's very much connected with relationships. So it's a time when you can make new relationships. It's a time when existing relationships can become more fulfilling. Yet, there is a danger that existing partners aren't giving you everything you want because your expectations are going to be very high. You regard relationships as an area of expansion, of something, where you can really develop as a person. So if existing partners aren't giving you what you want, you may be tempted to look further afield. I'm not going to give an opinion on whether or not that is the right or wrong thing to do. Sagittarius. In some ways, Jupiter going through Taurus is a little boring because Jupiter is going through a sector of your solar chart that is connected with hard work, with attending to details, and also looking after your body. So now is a time over the next year to make sure all the details are sorted out, and that includes things like how you look after yourself, your diet, your exercise routine, all that kind of stuff does need to be sorted out. Yeah, at first it might feel a bit boring, but honestly, it's for the best. Capricorn, Jupiter moving into Taurus, does focus on your creativity. You can do some amazing stuff. So, if recently you've been a little staid and you hadn't wanted to take risks, now's a time to spread your wings. And, don't be afraid of embarrassing yourself. If there's something you want to do, like perhaps playing a musical instrument or painting or whatever, yeah, go for it. You might think there's no point, but it's a waste of time, waste of effort, but you just don't know until you actually start putting your mind to it. Because, as a Capricorn, you can be very persistent. You never know what creative wonders you may be able to achieve over the next year. Aquarius. Well, with Jupiter moving through Taurus, you are going to be quite focused on your home, or at least you should be. Stability, grounding, security they're all going to be important to you. So that's what you need to focus on over the next year. In a year's time, you can be a lot more secure than you are now. Just don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. Don't think it's uncool to be concerned about security, because security does matter. And in terms of your domestic environment, yeah, you can create something wonderful. And if your current home isn't giving you everything you need, then maybe you can move somewhere else. And finally, Pisces. Well, Jupiter is moving through the communication sector of your solar chart, and you're able to communicate very well. And the secret to your communication is being down to earth, not using complicated language, just very simply explaining it how it is, telling people who you are, what you want, all this kind of stuff. And in that way, you will be able to get your message across. Now, I want to consider what does it mean when Jupiter moves into Taurus? Where is the focus going to be? I think people are perhaps going to be more concerned with the environment. Taurus is about the earth. We're all going to be concerned with the earth and how we look after it. Okay, not all of us. There are some people who are just going to trash the environment, whatever. But in many parts of the world, there is going to be a worry about environmental issues, more so than we've seen in the last year. And interestingly, on March 26, 1976, that was the very day that Jupiter went into Taurus. The Body Shop opened its first branch in Brighton. I mean, I think there was already a Body Shop in America, but the Body Shop is connected with the body and natural, wholesome ingredients. And so we got that in 1976, and maybe we might kind of get that feel again. People are going to be concerned about natural stuff, avoiding pollutants. We're all concerned about PFAS, forever chemicals, this kind of stuff. And people can think, hold on, we've got to start looking after ourselves, and we've got to start looking after the environment, because if we don't look after our environment, then we're not looking after ourselves. So I think that is going to be a theme of Jupiter in Taurus. Now, as far as the economy is concerned, I'm not that good at economics. When I was at university, I nearly failed my first year economics course. But Taurus is connected with the banks. It is connected with the markets. It's connected with things like investment. Jupiter went into Taurus in, as I've said, in June the 28th, 1999. It zoomed around Jupiter, Aries, and finally left Taurus in June the 30th, 2000. And the last time Jupiter went into Taurus, when it was going back and forth from 1999 to 2000, was in February 2000. And that was just before the dot-com crash. I think that Jupiter was in Taurus was suddenly saying, hold on, what's you doing? Jupiter in Aries has been very gung-ho, buying stocks, bull market going up, 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 and then Jupiter goes into Taurus. Hold on, this isn't real. We've got to come down to earth. So that might be one aspect of it. Now, as far as banking is concerned, we already know with Jupiter in Aries that many banks are in real trouble. We've had these small, medium-sized banks really stressed out. We've had Silicon Valley Bank and so forth. So we already know banks are a problem. And then Jupiter is now moving into Taurus. So what does that mean for the banking sector? I don't know, but I would have thought that Jupiter is all about maybe a bubble, expansion, and then thinking, hold on, this isn't real. We've got to get down to, we've got to, come down to earth. The Aries approach is no longer going to work. So I think one way or another, the banking sector over the next year is going to get a lot of attention. So that's certainly something to consider. Another thing to consider with Taurus is that it is, in some respects, quite a conservative sign. Taurus is about saying, well, enough of the nonsense. Let's just get back to basics. Let's just keep it real. And looking at 1976, 1977, when Jupiter was in Taurus, there was a Supreme Court decision on July the 2nd, 1976, Gregg versus Georgia. And as a result of this decision, as I understand it, I'm not a lawyer, the gate was suddenly opened for executions to restart in the United States. And soon after that, while Jupiter was in Taurus, the first execution after a long moratorium happened when that was Gary Gilmore. I think Gary Gilmore was executed in January the 17th, 1977. And that started this massive rise of executions. Looking at it from an English perspective, people are horrified. America started really executing people. Now, I'm not saying that there's suddenly going to be a rash of executions, but I think in the United States certainly. But I think it's a sign that people are going to perhaps swing back. Perhaps be more sympathetic to the idea of executing people in the United States. And that's going to be linked with, law and order. With Taurus, people wanted to make a stand against rampant crime. Now, it may be the case, probably is the case, that the death penalty does nothing to deter crime, but... and it may be not just death penalty, prison sentencing and all this kind of stuff. But I think there's going to be a swing while Jupiter goes into Taurus to a more conservative approach to law and order, even though, the White House is in Democrat hands. And, that Supreme Court decision, Gregg versus Georgia, actually happened just before Jimmy Carter was elected president. So in a way, yes, you had a Democrat in the White House, but at the same time, the spirit of America was actually moving to the right, was becoming more conservative. Yet I can now look at and say something completely different. And I want to talk about terrorism. Now, I've already said that a number of infamous terrorists have had their son in Taurus. Guy Fawkes, who tried to blow up the British Houses of Parliament in 1605, was a Taurus. Timothy McVeigh with the Oklahoma bombing, he was a Taurus. German terrorist Andreas Baader was a Taurus. The reason Taurans may be attracted to terrorism is because they feel there is no other option. If you believe in something, you need to take it, you need to go all the way. There is no alternative. And, with so much stress and opposition and demonstrations around the world, maybe it all happened in the wake of COVID and whatever. I think there is a slight danger with Jupiter moving into Taurus that we might start to see a rash of real terrorism in the West. And it may be reminiscent, perhaps, of the 70s when there was, you had, the Baader-Meinhof gang in Germany, the Red Brigades in Italy, not to mention you had Catholic and Protestant-based terrorist groups in Northern Ireland. So it can we may see a repeat there. So that's something we have to really watch. So what else? As far as the economy is concerned, in 1976, I did look at the gold price while Jupiter was in Taurus. In 1976, I believe this is a rough. I was just looking at a rough estimate. I was looking at a graph. When Jupiter went into Taurus in March 26, 1976, I believe that gold was at $132 or something like that. When it left Taurus on April the 3rd, 1977, it went to $148. So not a massive rise in the gold price, but certainly a rise in the gold price. And maybe that reflects the fact that when Jupiter is in Taurus, in certain situations, people want security. They want to hold things. They're not fooled by cash, particularly if you've got an inflationary situation. And of course, in 1976 we had inflation, and now people are very worried about inflation, even though governments are claiming that they've got the thing under control. Anything else about Jupiter and Taurus? Spirituality. Taurus is actually quite a spiritual sign. Taurans are often into the earth. They're into things like paganism. Paganism is a very Taurean thing. Earth cults. Things like Wicca are very, fertility gods and all this kind of stuff. So that might be another aspect of it. Jupiter in Taurus, which Jupiter in Taurus is about wanting to expand in a Taurean earth kind of way. And that may be links with the environmental awareness. So that is certainly a possibility. So as you can see, there are a number of ways in which Taurus can manifest. Oh, and I should, of course, look at how some people are going to look at, how the most optimistic way, the kind of thing you're probably going to hear if you go to some other video on Jupiter in Taurus. Taurus is a very sensual sign. It's, often connected with the body, with touching, sexuality, and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm sure there are many astrologers who are going to say that Jupiter in Taurus is going to be great for getting, very close to your partner, having a strong physical, sensual relationship with your partner. And yeah, that may be the case. It's not the first thing I would look at, but maybe that is something to consider. So I've had a look at Jupiter in Taurus. What I'm really trying to do is raise some possibilities. I'm not sort of telling you for sure what's going to happen. And I would recommend that you think carefully about what Taurus means, all its positive and negative connotations. You think about what Jupiter means. It's about expansion, for better or for worse. You put them together, and then you might have some idea about what it will mean for Jupiter to be in Taurus. Thank you for listening.